But, one of the things Papadopoulos has been tweeting about, which I find terribly interesting, is that President Obama's now got to make a special trip over to Italy. And, of course, Papadopoulos said, look, the reason for this trip is basically to shore up their stories, because we know that the Attorney General, Bill Barr, and John Durham, these sort of special prosecutors set up to look into all this election meddling, these guys are asking really tough questions. At least that's the reports that we're getting back from folks like Mark Meadows and Devin Nunes and others, that they're asking a lot of questions. They're asking the right questions, and they're really investigating this and taking it very seriously. So, we've always had some concern as to whether that would be the case after what we saw that they did with the Hillary Clinton email scandal, which, remember the IG report on a lot of this stuff? I mean, it's just like, it's a tale of two cities, right? I mean, all the evidence is there, 400 or 500 pages of evidence. Same kind of thing with Hillary Clinton. And then the conclusion is that nothing was done wrong here. Even though we can clearly see all these violations, repeated violations, we can read the texts and everything else. So right now, just today, President Obama, or former President Obama, is having a secret meeting with the former Italian Prime Minister, Matteo Renzi. Now, again, Renzi was the one in charge when Obama was pulling all this Spygate, Intelgate stuff off. And remember, this involved Joseph Mifsud and the agents in Rome who tried to entrap Papadopoulos. And so there's some question as to whether or not Italy would have been involved in this intelligence operation. You certainly think they would.
Do we know if Renzi was part of he's not the party that's in power now? Correct.
That's Salvini and the others that are in power now. So this is the guy who was in power when President Obama was in power here in the U.S. So it would be natural that this would be his cohort. This would be the person with whom now, I would like to think that President Obama wouldn't be the one directly dealing in these matters, but, who knows exactly how far he went in this whole thing. And that's the big question. What did President Obama know? What did he authorize? And it is kind of hard to believe that, the intelligence agencies would have gone rogue. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to believe they would have cooked all this up and pulled it off all by themselves, and then just hoping that President Obama wouldn't, throw them all in jail or would support their efforts or whatever it may be. I mean, you tend to think about bureaucratic decision-making and bureaucracies, and you tend to think that, the defensive maneuver would be to inform your superior, right, and kind of bring them into your efforts. So that way, if anybody ever points the finger at you, you can always say, well, my boss authorized it. I was just doing what my boss told me to do. So when we tend to think about governments and bureaucracies and the way that they work, these folks don't tend to go off the reservation and just make a bunch of decisions for themselves by themselves. Why? Because that's how they can really get into a lot of trouble. Now, we'll have to wait and see what the news stories come down and how it all comes down, see if somebody falls on their sword. Because, if the heat really comes down on this, and we're going to talk some more about this during the program, but if the heat really comes down on this, I mean, there's a potential for somebody to be in real criminal jeopardy for what they may have done here.
So Trump is meeting with the previous prime minister.
Obama.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He is.
So Obama's going over there, right, for the purposes
yes.
of getting their story straight, right?
Gotcha.
You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's why they're having a secret face-to-face meeting. They're not going to do it over the phone because who would be listening? The NSA. Any kind of electronic communications that they might attempt would be tracked, and they could be used. So we might hear their voices on the phone saying, hey, we got to get our story straight. We got to make sure this is why we did this, remember? These kind of conversations among criminal co-conspirators that occur once they know that law enforcement's onto them. And, we don't have any direct evidence that that's exactly what's going on. But I'll tell you what, George Papadopoulos is very in touch with the Italian news media, as well as a number of individuals in Italy who have a lot of information. And Papadopoulos is the one who's saying President Obama's over there getting his story straight right now. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard. And if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.